Hi and welcome to aboutmashiach.com. Today we'll be talking about the so-called conspiracy theory and how it relates to the coming of Moshiach. So everybody knows there's been the coronavirus that's hit the world and caused many changes to the way we live our lives, especially to how the government goes on about its business with restrictions, lockdowns, mandates, etc. And therefore, there's been theories of conspiracy that the government has some evil agenda that it's executing, and we're basically being set up according to that agenda. We're going to look at the details of the claim of this conspiracy, but we're not going to validate or invalidate it. All we're going to do is look at the details and see whether it has some place in the coming of Moshiach according to the Torah. So to begin, we need to look at conspiracies in general, because we know that in history we've encountered on an individual level many conspiracies, especially the famous one being blood libels. And we say that in most versions of the morning blessings that we recite on a daily basis, we ask God not to bring us to an alila, to a conspiracy. And on the political arena, we also know that there's been kings, emperors, dictators, all conspiring one against the other, whether it's in the royal family, whether it's outside it, there's been plenty of that as well. And there's also been good conspiracies as well. To cite one example, Joseph conspiring against his brothers to bring them down to Egypt, especially his younger brother Benjamin, and then testing them to see whether they've repented for when they sold him as a slave. So there's good conspiracies as well. And there's a whole different level of conspiracies, which is God Almighty himself. What do you know? He is also a conspirer. And not only that, an awesome conspirer, as the Psalm says in Psalm 66, Nora alila al bnei Adam. God is an awesome conspirer against men. And the Midrash on the right here brings some examples of how God conspires against men, starting with Adam, who was created on Friday, but the evil inclination was created before that, knowing full well that he's going to sin and the evil inclination will enter him, and humanity will have to deal with that until the end of time. And then you've got the next example is Moses, who was not allowed to go into the land of Israel because he hit the rock at the end of the 40 years in the desert, even though that decree was already made much before that. And then you've got Joseph, his brothers, and his father Jacob all ending up in Egypt through many games of jealousy. You had famine, and then all kinds of different factors that brought them down to Egypt, even though they wanted to live in the land of Israel. And all that was in order for God to fulfill his promise to Abraham that his children will end up in a foreign land as slaves. So there you go. God is also a conspirer as well. It's a whole different level of conspiracy. And we actually experience that on a daily basis through divine providence, where everyone at some stage in their lives find themselves in an undesirable situation that they didn't want to be in, and they ended up there by divine providence in order to achieve some divine purpose. So we experience that level of conspiracy also on an individual level, everyone according to their particular job in life. So that's important to keep in mind when we look at all these conspiracies, because we're going to come back to that. So with that, let's have a look at the details of the conspiracy theory around COVID-19. So we basically got a global government, the global elite group, who is calling the shots, controlling all the governments around the world. This is what the claim is. And therefore, there's no more democracy. You can have elections and choose a candidate, choose a party, but at the end of the day, they are all going to be reporting to this global government. And the form of that government is totalitarianism, which means that they want to control every aspect of everything. And technocracy is another way of looking at it, where the big tech companies are involved and enable all this agenda to happen. And the main way of doing that is through surveillance and the 5G network to utilize that, and therefore people won't have so much of a free choice to do what they want. They'll have to follow orders, whatever the orders are, and there's going to be a social scoring system where if you do the right thing, you get rewarded, and if you do the wrong thing, you get the opposite of that. And then there's going to be new currency, which is controlled by the government and superseding all the other currencies, so there's more control there. And also in terms of business, only government-controlled businesses will be operating, not independent businesses. And even ownership of assets, everything will be owned by that government. So you own nothing, basically. And then the fifth industrial revolution, which is already seeing artificial intelligence, AI, replacing many jobs. Anything that can be automated is automated, and therefore there are a lot of occupations that will just basically become obsolete. And if you don't need all these people because they don't have a job, then the last and most extreme or scary aspect of this conspiracy is that there's going to be some depopulation, basically getting rid of people, and possibly through defertilizing them so they can't reproduce. So all these details are quite scary, they're grim and evil. So that's what the claim is. But what we're going to do is look at that and also look at how these aspects manifest themselves in the coming of Moshiach, and obviously that's going to be in a good and positive way. So stay tuned for the next video.